Hello, so today is going to be a VOD review of a Syndra game. So Syndra recently got buffed in the most recent patch, so she is a little bit more playable, and there are a lot of lines that are coming out of playing Syndra reroll. Gone are the days of Syndra being super broken like she was in the first couple of patches. Now the way you should always think about Syndra is that if you have a really good Syndra spot, so probably one of the best Syndra spots you would have had previously, you can translate that into being a decent enough spot to play Syndra reroll to get some sort of top 4. Typically Syndra is really good with Eldritch now. Eldritch also got a lot of changes, so a lot of times you're aiming towards hitting 7 Eldritch and playing around Syndra with Eldritch. In this case, I won't hit an Eldritch +1 this game. I don't remember if I do, but we're basically just going to be rerolling Syndra because I start out with a really good spot for Syndra in my opinion. So here we start with the Syndra. I start with a sword. I get a tier and a sword, which is Shojin. Shojin is one of the Syndra's best items. And the reason that Syndra is so contingent on having a good opener is because Syndra scales really aggressively. So if you look here, I have 2 Syndras. I have a Syndra in shop. I have a Syndra on my board. Even if I don't commit to playing Syndra now, I might just play some other AP line. The thing is, you want to get that Shojin or any item really on Syndra as early as possible, because it relies on you rely late game on Syndra scaling her casts up. Every cast Syndra does, eventually she upgrades, as I kind of hover it quickly, but after 15 casts, she does a little bit of shredding, and then after 30 casts, she basically gets these extra rifts that do damage. I'm sure everybody has seen Syndra at one point because of how dominant she was at the beginning of the set. She's not dominant now, don't worry about this too much. It's a very niche line because now if you don't have good scaling and a good opener for it, there's a very low chance you can actually play Syndra. You can start the game with 7 Syndras. I don't care how many Syndras you have. If you don't have items for the Syndra early, you are probably gonna have a really hard time going top 4. And that's something that's really important. Likewise, if you have really good Syndra and you don't have the Syndra, you just won't scale well into late game. The only reason I'm even considering playing Syndra in this game is because I started with not 1 but 2 Syndras, and I started with a Shojin. The other item that I have is a belt. Another item that pairs really well with Shojin is Nashers, because Nashers gives you attack speed when you cast. Attack speed helps the Syndra to cast multiple times. So Shojin Nashers is a really good pairing on a lot of units. So having the belt is half another Syndra item. Ideally, I would say that if you want to play for like a first, if you're thinking like, oh, I want to get like a top 1, top 2 with Syndra, you really should start with Syndra and 2 whole items. Right? If you start the game with Shojin, Nashers, and a Syndra, then you're in a spot for playing for first. If you just start the game like I did with like Syndra and a Shojin, the chances are you'll probably end up somewhere in like the top 4 if you play it well and if you high roll a little bit towards your mid game and actually hit your units on time. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to try it out. That's my suspicion, so we'll try it out in the video and we'll see how it goes. Also, if you do like my content, make sure to like and subscribe because it helps me out. This is what I would call really good Syndra opener, right? We have Syndra 2 already. I'm not that rich, but I'm not that poor. There was a lot of gold in the opener, so I have 13 gold. Basically, because it was a silver augment, I took one that gave me a bunch of gold because I want to establish econ. I knew I'd be holding a little bit of expensive units here. So my augment choice, I didn't see anything that was particularly broken or particularly good for what I needed. So I instead chose to take gold generating augments so that I can set myself up for late game. Syndra is really important because a lot of times you're playing towards 7 Eldritch now with Syndra. You usually want either an Eldritch +1 or you have to make it to level 9 to fit in a meaningful board. You also have to roll for Syndra, and a lot of times you're rolling for Mordekaiser. So the board typically looks something like this. I'll just show it to you now as a quick interlude. So we'll just show here. Let's just like skip out. So these are stats, right? If I go Syndra and I go Syndra 3, you'll see that it averages like a 4.5. It's like okay. It's like a 50% top 4 rate. It's not that great. You'll see that the placement obviously gets a lot better if you hit a Briar. And in terms of traits, the main trait that you usually see is either like really vertical shapeshifter, which obviously has a low sample size. It is still early in the patch, so there's not that well of a reliable way of understanding what's going on. But the main one that you see that's like a hittable trait is 7 Eldritch. 7 Eldritch is the big one. So the new line that you usually play with Syndra is just vertical Eldritch. And the thing is, this comp works really well if you have multiple Eldritch spats. So as you can see, if you buy every single Eldritch unit in the game, you will be 7 Eldritch. That's why you don't really need to have an Eldritch +1, but it's really important because as you can see, your board's kind of dog shit and it relies on this Briar. The reason the board's dog shit is because Ashe doesn't really do anything. Elise kinda doesn't do anything unless you have Briar. Nyla often, unless you're like in a spot where you're rerolling for Nyla as well, doesn't do anything. And your items are going mostly to Syndra, so Nami doesn't do that much. So a lot of times when you're playing this board, it's really weird unless you're 7 Eldritch. It's really weird unless you have an Eldritch +1 to hit 7 Eldritch. 5 Eldritch doesn't do that much. The 7 Eldritch helps out a lot because the stun from the Volibear, the stun from the Eldritch Beast, is actually really good into a lot of matchups. The Eldritch Beast coming in could be really clutch against both a Varus comp and a Kalista comp, which are both super meta. And that's part of the reason why it helps out. He just jumps in front of the Kalista or jumps in front of the Varus, stuns them, they stop their cast or they don't get to cast, and basically just interrupts, works as like an intermediate interrupting unit. A lot of times what you'll end up playing is something along the lines of this. If you have an Eldritch +1, you'll typically just put on Karma, and you'll play a board like this if you can hit the Briar. Until you make it to like a spot where you can actually hit Briar, usually you'll just play some other variation. So you'll drop these 2 units, and then you'll play some Vanguard, right? You can either play like Tom Kench, for example, and then on level 8, if you can make it to level 8, you'll usually just play a Chrono Champion just to make it work, right? You can, or sorry, I think the board is more this one. Excuse me. If you're playing and you have an Eldritch +1 and you don't have Briar yet, a lot of times you'll play something like this as an intermediate until you hit 7 Eldritch. You can play something like this, where you have Mordekaiser, Galio, Vex. You can itemize Nami a little bit. Then you have 3 Mage in for Nami, so she gets a lot of stuns off. Syndra can ramp up the whole game, and then you play Karma. There's variations where you play reroll with Cassio as well. I wouldn't recommend those. Those are usually Cassio primary. If you're really trying to make Syndra work, what you really want is you want the 7 Eldritch. So as soon as you can fit in 7 Eldritch, reliably, you fit it in. But it's a little bit awkward, right? Your front line's going to be very piss poor. It's going to be very fucking bad if you just play it like this on level 8 after hitting Syndra 3 and Mordekaiser 3, right? You can probably fit in a Vanguard to synergize with the Mordekaiser, but without the Eldritch +1, it becomes very difficult. So that's what I see. There's a lot of conditions to make this comp work, and that's why I want to make it very clear that, you know, don't always recreate what I'm doing. Make sure that your spot is really good. Syndra is really strong, and you'll see that I'll win a lot of mid-game and late-game fights playing Syndra, but you have to be very careful about that. You want to make sure that your Syndra is scaling, because you can do all of this, right? All this effort, you can do all this work, and you will just lose every fight later if the Syndra doesn't scale enough. That's a given. That's just a given. If you look at my spot, this is a game that is particularly high roll. Now we're back at looking at the VOD. Look at my spot. I have Syndra 2, I also have Mordekaiser 2, and I have 30 gold. It's stage 2. I have Mordekaiser 2, Syndra 2. I am very strong right now. I'm in a very good spot. I don't have 2 Syndra items because I didn't have an item to make for the Syndra, but I did have the Mordekaiser on Carousel, and I had a Mordekaiser already, so I high rolled into a Mordekaiser 2 early. This is a very good spot. Arguably, it's too good of a spot, considering, because then, like, you know, I wanted to have, like, more of an average case for the early game to kind of test out the waters more with the Syndra, because, you know, I'm at that point now where I don't care too much about ranking up, because I hit Masters, so I want to make sure that I learn as much as possible in every game. But this is typically how your mid-game looks. If you high roll the Mordekaiser, you high roll the Mordekaiser. If not, having the Eldritch in is really important, just because it gives you a lot of, it basically like spawns an extra unit. So in early game stage 2 fights as well as stage 3 fights, you have this extra unit that people have to chew through, so you put yourself in a good spot to win the round because of that. Anyways, let's just watch it out. It should be like pretty simple from now on. Basically, you're gonna roll on 6 for Syndra and Mordekaiser. Ideally, you hit Syndra early. Because you're playing this vertical Eldritch variation, there's very few other 2 costs that you want to play on your board. Cassio is an option, but Cassio isn't that great to play around. Just because late game, you'd rather just have a Karma. You waste too much gold on Cassio 3 because you'd rather just push levels and play around Eldritch. Ideally, you get dropped an Eldritch spat. This spot works really well if you start the game and you can take Eldritch off rip. So for example, let's say you start the game and you have a Shojin on your bench. If you get offered Eldritch spat, it gives you a Syndra as well as another Eldritch unit, so you can fit in 3 Eldritch instantly, get a Syndra. If you have the items for it, you can scale her really well, and that's usually how I see this line being played. Very often, more often than not, you want to start with the Eldritch emblem and then, you know, get a Syndra and then play around the Syndra. If you start like how I am with the Syndra, just hope that you hit an Eldritch spat, you're probably not going to hit the Eldritch spat. It just never works out like that. So you want to make sure that you're prepared for that at least. Because my spot is so good, like I said before, you can start with Syndra and you can put the items on her. It doesn't mean that you're hard committing just yet. I can easily transfer these items onto a different AP unit. I can play Karma later, right? Who knows, right? We'll see. The reason I'm definitely playing Syndra this game, not only because I'm like forcing it to learn, is because I also have a shit ton of Mordekaisers. If you don't have as many Mordekaisers as well, there's a good chance that you won't stabilize, so you want to make sure that you're in a good spot for late game. So you want to be careful there. Spellblades is okay. I think I took Support Golem here. I'm not sure which is better. In terms of Syndra items, we should also talk about Syndra items a little bit. So I'm going to do that really fast. Sorry, I'm doing this live. For those that don't know, you can check me out on Twitch sometimes and see me rage in real life. But so I'm a little bit I don't have everything pulled up instantly because I'm kind of doing it in between my regular stream to make sure it gets uploaded in time. When you're looking at Syndra items, I think a lot of the times, like, there's different renditions of items. Red buff is always really good because Syndra does a little bit of she does a little bit of shredding already. So she does like the MR resist. So if you want all your utility dealt with, all you need to put on her is anti-heal. That's why something like red buff and Morello works really well, because it just fills in all the gaps. So you'll see the damage is really good. Whenever you look at any of these items though, a lot of times it will say that you need like a Shojin or a blue buff. Blue buff is weird. Blue buff's really good on Syndra, but I think you need a Nashor's as well in order to make it work. Like, you need some other AP item, or sorry, some other mana item in order for it to work out really well. So typically what you're building just for item economy is Shojin. And then if you're making a Shojin, a lot of times, like, you know, you want something that gives you attack speed. So either a red buff. I think Nashor's is a little bit worse nowadays, but it's still good, right? It's still minus delta. So you want something that gives attack speed because you wanted to cast a bunch. And then after that, so we'll just put Nashor's here as like an example. Your last item, you really want anti-heal, or you want like giga damage, right? Like Archangels now works well. Before Gwinsu used to be the go-to, you'd always make Gwinsu on Syndra. You don't make it anymore. The way that they changed her now, she does more ability power damage. So you want to make her hit hard. Alright, you don't want to give her Gwinsu because it just doesn't give you a lot of value, especially late game. You want to give her like a Rabadons, Adaptive, Archangels even. Obviously they have low sample size. It is early in the patch. We'll see how it evolves as time goes on. But you have to understand, you're supposed to be really good, right? I put here 2 items on Syndra. It still averages close to a 4.5. It's a very niche line. As much as you might want to enjoy it and think like, hey, maybe Syndra's back. I enjoyed Syndra a little bit from the past. You should only take it if your spot is good. I want to stress that. I want to make that very clear. But as part of my due diligence of this YouTube channel, the reason I'm showing it and the reason I'm trying these things out is because I'll test it out for you, right? I'll test it out, I'll give you my opinion on it, and then you don't have to sacrifice your LP trying it out. That's the whole point right now, because now I made it to Masters. I'm not too worried about hitting challenge or anything like that. I'm not striving for that right now because the patch as it is, I'm not super enjoying it. So, you know, if I start enjoying the patch a lot more, then I'll try and climb, try and get Grandmaster, try and get Challenger, who knows, we'll see. But for at least right now, for the next couple weeks, I'm just going to be trying out as many different comps as I can, try out as many different variations I can, as many niche lines as I can, so that I can give you my opinion on it, give you my take, and give you a little bit of a tutorial while I'm at it. I took Support Golem. Spellblaze is pretty good with Syndra because she casts a bunch, but I'd rather take Support Golem because I just want to have a good, front line. Stalling out is really important, and it also helps you to scale really well. Here, I still don't have my 3rd Syndra item. That's a little bit bad. Ideally, by now, 3-5 with all my components, you want to stack your Syndra with the items because you want her to continue scaling. You want her to scale as much as possible. Roughly, the way you should always look at it is every stage, you should be getting an extra rift. So every stage, you should get around 30 casts done. If you're behind that, then that's bad. If you're ahead of that, then that's good. If you're falling behind on your cast, there's nothing really you can do. Right now, I'm really knee-deep in this shit. I'm just committed because I'm basically just rolling on 6 now. I have a bunch of Mordekaisers and a bunch of Syndras. My spot's really good for the comp. It's almost like, I would say it's pretty high roll. Besides the fact that I don't have an Eldritch +1 or an Eldritch emblem, I think that this is a pretty high roll spot. So take the results of this game with that concept in mind, right? That this was a spot where I started with the Syndra. I have 2 items on Syndra on stage 3. Ideally, it would have been 3, but it's still 2 good items on her. And I'm trying my best, and we'll see how it goes. But like I said, usually in your early mid-game, you're just playing around a couple Eldritch units. I'm high rolling the fuck out of this game, by the way. Look at this. It's 3-6, and I already am like 2 off of Syndra 3. I'm not going to send it to 0 yet. You never want to overroll with this comp. Whenever you're playing a comp that relies really heavily on a 5 cost, you always want to try and play it as greedy as possible, and that's why the spot really matters. Your early game really matters when you're playing a board like this. I want to eventually make it to Briar. If I don't make it to Briar, I think that my board will not be as strong as it could be. Especially if I don't hit an Eldritch +1. If I don't hit an Eldritch +1 and I'm committed Syndra, I'm pretty much just playing for 4th. It's going to be very, very difficult because I need to make it to like a high level in order to fit in enough units to support my front line, as well as get 7 Eldritch in, as well as get Incanter in, to make sure my Syndra does a bunch of damage. This fight was awful, by the way. I positioned really poorly here. Akali just instantly dashed on my Syndra and killed her. As you can see, the fight is lasting. If my Syndra didn't get one-shot by the Akali, I might have even won this fight. The problem is she also died really early. So that's like minus 3 or 4 casts that I'm already a little bit behind on. So that's just the worst thing ever. You always want to be really vigilant about stuff like that when you're playing Syndra. Anything that causes you not to get casts is hurting your long-term game plan. But anyways, I'm 2 off Syndra. I'm like 1 or 2 off Mordekaiser. I'm like 6 off Mordekaiser or so. We're in an okay spot because ideally you're gonna roll on 6, hit the Syndra, gather up Mordekaisers, maybe gather up some Nylas. If you hit a Nyla 3, you can itemize the Nyla as well, and then you're gonna push levels, get an Incanter in. There's no reason to waste too much gold on Cassiopeia because you likely won't have items for the Cassio anyways. So you can just level, get in your whole units, and everything's great. Here, this is the awkward part. I don't have a 3rd Syndra item right now, so this is the part where it starts to be from high roll to like pretty low roll. What you really want on Syndra is some sort of massive AP item as your last item if you have attack speed already. I can't really make an AP item. I don't want to make Static Shiv because I feel like it's a bit useless. I'd rather make, if I have to make a shred item, I'd rather make Spark on Mordekaiser, because Mordekaiser does a lot of damage. So giving Mordekaiser Spark, it's one of his best items because he can kind of like solo take out some units on his own. So I'd much rather save the Cloak and just get a Rod on Carousel or a Rod later in the game and make a Spark later rather than a Shiv. Syndra does shredding already, so it's not that important. I probably could have made anti-heal here, but I didn't have a good anti-heal item. I could have greeded for red buff instead of making Nashers. I think that's the only play I could have made that's different. The problem is, it's just I have too much HP, so I don't think I'm ever getting a bow, and I don't want to chance it that later in the game I'm going to get dropped a bow. It's a little bit unlikely. Here I'm rolling for Eldritch +1, I don't hit it. The best thing I can hit probably was like Blossoming Lotus just to give me more damage. I take Heroic Grab Bag here. The reason I take Heroic Grab Bag is because I looked at my Syndra items and I said, yeah, I either have to greed for red buff or I just have to like hope that I hit. You know what I mean? So in my head I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I think I'm just going to take Heroic Grab Bag, guarantee the units. So here, this is what I'm doing, right? I rolled. I need to find 1 Mordekaiser. I leveled to 7. Because I found 1 Mordekaiser, I have 3 duplicators because I hit 1 on the charm. So now I have Syndra 3, Mordekaiser 3. Really, really ahead of tempo. It's 4-2, start of the stage, Mordekaiser 3, Syndra 3. My Syndra has been scaling, so she's going to do damage. My items are shit, so she's going to fall off later, but I have a remover, so I can replace one of the Nashers with something else later. But ideally, you want to have... I have no anti-heal right now, which is a big problem. I made the Nashers early because with Syndra, you really can't greed your items too much. This other Nashor's Tooth will help her in some way, shape, or form get some casts off, which will help her to continue to scale. If I fall behind on my scaling, it's all for nothing. You're just going to lose every fight at the end of the game. She just won't do enough damage, and it's just going to be depressing and miserable. That's my opinion of the unit right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should have greeded for either Morello or red buff because I used bow and belt to make the Nashers. I can see that argument, and 100% you're probably right. But it's just like, that's like if you're playing for first. I already kind of gave up on the spot because I don't have much faith in the unit. I'm gonna be real here. I don't think the buffs were that massive to her. I think she's definitely playable. I think it's better just to do this, and then I'll remove her and I'll put a red buff on her later if I hit it. It's just the way it is. Like I said, Heroic Grab Bag was good here just because of how close I was to hitting both of them. Now I'm basically going straight to level 9. I want to level up as many levels as possible. Level 9, I can fit in 7 Eldritch without having to affect my board too much. But I can keep in Vanguard to give my Mordekaiser a little bit more sustainability. And then I could also fit in the 7 Eldritch to then actually have the good Eldritch Beast to do all this crazy shit as an extra unit on the board. So that's my thought process, at least. The Heroic Grab Bag, because I was so close to hitting them all, you can argue that it was useless, but if I had to roll to like 0 gold, and I was like level 6 0 gold here, it's way worse than being level 7 40 gold. You can treat the Heroic Grab Bag as being like a 40 gold investment. It was pretty good. It was pretty good in that spot in particular for me, at least. Also, the other augments I don't think were that great, right? Blossoming Lotus is pretty okay if you already have like crit chance on your units. Because the crit chance just takes too long to actually be meaningful in a lot of fights, is what I find. If you start with a bunch of crit chance, then yes, it's going to give you like extra crit damage at one point, then you actually start hitting like a truck towards the end of the fight. But at this point, I was like, I might as well just like take whatever. Here I take Glove. There was no Rod or for Spark, but I'm down to take Glove. I can TG somebody as well. Which is good for item economy. Like if I have a Briar, I can just shove a TG on her, and that's my thought process here. Or Glove can be Jewel Gauntlet, which is okay on Syndra as well. Just like give her a lot more AP and some damage. And then eventually, like I said, I want ideally Spark on Mordekaiser. I don't have anti-heal. Maybe I could have taken an anti-heal component. I'm actually going to go back in the VOD to double check. Like, was there a belt there? If there was a belt, I should have taken belt. No, there's no belt. Yeah. Look, I had chainmail, sword, or glove. Okay, I just want to double check. Anti-heal is really, really important. Like, most of the anti-heal items are the best items on Syndra. It's just so good for your item economy. It's so good for everything else. And a lot of the fights late game, might really matter. Especially if somebody's playing Karma Preserver, right? Trying to cut through that Recon is pretty much impossible. Same with, like, Varus in some variations when you have a lot of HP and there's some healing there. If they play Preservers, you really need to cut that down in order to keep up with those comps, or else you're just basically playing for 4th. One Kalista player, hit everything. I'm still winning all these rounds. That's the glory of Heroic Grab Bag. I don't really have many good combat augments. I do have this Golem, which is nice, so we can make use of this Golem. But other than that, we kind of don't have anything that really helps us with our combat, so that's going to hurt us late game as well. It was just too good to pass up on a Heroic Grab Bag. It was like a guaranteed, the way I saw it, it was like a guaranteed win out on stage 4. Which is why I took it. Because I was like, if I have Mordekaiser 3 and Syndra 3 right now this turn, I'm pretty sure I'm going top 4 guaranteed. Right? There's no way I bought 4 from this spot. So that's why I took it. I took it more for security rather than like max cap, right? This is what I was saying, anti-heal. No anti-heal here. Yeah, that Recon's never gonna die. Syndra doesn't have enough single target damage, I find, to like chew through tanks. She's usually really good at like killing a bunch of things after a while. So, you know, it is what it is. I still have this Blitzcrank, by the way. I want to switch it for Tahm Kench eventually, just get a Vanguard in, or I'll just play Eldritch and no synergies for Mordekaiser. There's a good reason for both of them. If I level up, I'm level 8, I could probably just play Eldritch straight up. But I need to find a Briar, right? Because I don't have Eldritch +1, I need to find a Briar. But until then, I'm probably just going to play this variation. So, 5 Eldritch. I level up, I'm going to put in Vex. Vex is Chrono, which gives your whole team a little bit of healing. And Mage. So then you can switch out the Blitzcrank for Galio, like I showed you in the previous, like before I showed you on the stats page when I was building team comp. So you get Mage in, which helps your, like, you know, it doesn't matter that much for your Nami in terms of damage, but just in terms of interrupting the enemy. Right, there's a lot of comps like Varus and Kalista, especially where they're ramping up, where they're trying to cast multiple times. If you can stop that or delay it even for a little bit, it'll greatly affect your board. It'll greatly affect the outcome of the fight. I'm on correct side against the Akali this time. That's great. I don't know if I beat this guy. It just depends on if this Akali just meanders too much in the middle of the board. Because my Mordekaiser is going to be hard to chew through. But if the Akali gets on my Syndra, it's probably GG. Oh, nice! Akali's dumb. She ran away. Oh, this guy got griefed by Akali. This is why I hate Akali, by the way. Do you see what happened? The Akali was on the Syndra, and then she didn't kill the Syndra, and then she casted, which makes her dash to the furthest unit, so she dashed back to the middle. That's why whenever you build a Akali reroll, a lot of the times what you want to build is like Deathblade, IE. You want to build her like pure damage, right? Having these extra items doesn't matter because, like, you know, she dives the backline. You think, oh, I want to have her have some survivability. Oh, this is a scam fight, by the way. So I got the charm that gave me an Eldritch emblem, so I can play 7 Eldritch this turn. So I'm just doing it to win one fight, basically. I'm like, you know what? That's a guaranteed win this fight, so I'm just going to do it. So bang, we just do it. So we just guarantee win this next fight. Maybe not guarantee, but like we have a good chance of winning this fight just because we just instantly just teleport to having 7 Eldritch. This is what the board would look like if you had an Eldritch emblem from the start. Imagine my first album was Eldritch emblem. This is what I mean. The Eldritch Beast, he jumps in, stuns the backline. Look at how much damage he's doing. Plus the Syndra, she does the AoE shred, so the beast does damage to the backline. Easy clap, right? So that's what I mean. This comp is very strong if you start with an Eldritch emblem. You can't really cross your fingers and hope that you get an Eldritch emblem later. It doesn't happen that often, trust me. But if you start the game with an Eldritch emblem and you're 7 Eldritch, that's like an idea of what it looks like. But that's also because I have Syndra and Mordekaiser 3. If you're around this part of the game and you don't have Syndra and Mordekaiser 3, you know, even with 7 Eldritch, you're probably going to lose. But that's like a little glimmer of what it's supposed to look like. But like I said, that guy's comp, he was just playing like a flex board, right? When I'm talking about these comps, in the current meta, the way I have to recommend a comp is with the intention of whether or not this comp is going to be good against Syndra and Varus, right? Most people in lobby are going to be contesting Syndra and Varus, and if, or sorry, not Syndra, Kalista and Varus. And most people are going to be contesting towards Kalista and Varus. If this comp has a really hard time chewing through Kalista Varus, it's probably not going to do well in the meta because you're going to have a really hard time getting through. Here, of course, I don't have anti-heal. That's the biggest problem. I have no real way of chewing through this Rakan without him just healing everything back. Even if I had anti-heal, this fight wouldn't be this. I would probably still lose this fight even if I had anti-heal. I'm going to be real. I don't think Syndra has enough target damage to chew through. If you do have like Karma 3 items, like you're in a Scuttle Puddle situation, and you have like Karma upgraded with 3 items, then you might have enough damage to chew through everybody. But unless you do, I don't think Syndra cuts it. Also, my damage items are also pretty piss poor, right? I was saying that I want a 3rd item on this, a different item on this Syndra. Here's a Guard Breaker. Honestly, Guard Breaker might be better than Nashor's. It gives more AP, right? And some crit chance. How much AP does it? It gives 10. Ugh. That's not that good. Just gives a little bit of crit chance. I mean, it's probably better. It gives damage amp, which is more important. Yeah, and then I just put Nashor's on the Karma. That's okay. Like you can see, this is what I mean. You need to have a really good spot. You're going to lose a lot of fights late game. My items didn't work out perfectly. I have Spark on the Mordekaiser. Like I said before, multiple times, I don't have anti-heal. I messed up in the way I slammed my items and the way I worked it out. It would have been very hard to get anti-heal from my spot, so you usually want to start with anti-heal first. I prioritize making Nashor's. I could have probably made some anti-heal somewhere. Like even a Sunfire Cape. I probably had the opportunity to make a Sunfire Cape at one point in the game. Sunfire Cape is pretty useless. It's a really bad item in general. It's just understated. Even as utility, because it's understated, that's what makes it really bad. For example, if I made Sunfire for Mordekaiser, it's worse than, like, it's arguably, like, it's hard to describe if Sunfire on Mordekaiser or no anti-heal, which one's worse. Because Sunfire on Mordekaiser is basically like you get one less item on the unit, which, you know, in itself is like, hey, this is going to be my main tank. So if I just put a Sunfire on him, you know, I'm making him more susceptible to dying easier. And then if he dies, the Sunfire Cape is gone anyways, right? If he dies, you lose the anti-heal. Versus, like, you have anti-heal in some of the matchups that it's really, really important, like the Rakan matchup. It doesn't matter if the Mordekaiser would die because the Rakan sure as hell isn't dying, so you probably want anti-heal there. That's like that's why, like, usually you don't slam Sunfire. whenever the times you slam Sunfire is if you're tempoing early game, because Sunfire like is not understated in the early game. In the early game, an item is an item. Any item is better than no item. So if you start the game off and you have Sunfire, it makes a lot of sense to slam it really early in the game because you'll win a lot of rounds because of it, and then it's useful, right? So if you're somewhere in the middle of the game, going to the end of the game, at that point it's like, I'd rather have a third item on Mordekaiser, right? That's like the thought process a lot of the time. Not to be like super cruel about it or like whatever, but of course, like, you know, I was hoping that eventually I would stumble across anti-heal in the form of the wolves or the dragons, like the later item encounters. I would find some way to make anti-heal. That's a bit way better. Obviously, if you're playing a reroll comp, that you want one that's way better at playing for first. Veigar or Viger is way better, so you should just go for that. As you can see here, I'm keeping up. I am losing a couple rounds here and there. I'm gonna start losing pretty much every round because at one point not having 7 Eldritch is gonna be like a death sentence. My lobby worked out really well. I tempoed really hard because I hit my units so early. Not hitting my units would have been scary. Here it's either blue buff or jewel gauntlet. I'm debating whether or not I take blue buff. I think I just take jewel gauntlet because I just want more AP. So I'm going to put jewel gauntlet on Syndra, and then I'm going to move one of the other items. There is no anti-heal there, so that's unfortunate again, but it's okay. Like I said, I kind of messed it up on my own. I greeted for most of the stage, so I can make it to level 9 here. Find a Briar and play 7 Eldritch. That's my game plan to a certain extent. And then with 7 Eldritch on level 9, you kind of have a little bit of an opportunity to win some of the rounds. But like I said, at this point, I think I'm just going to lose everything. This is where everything comes to an end. But it's totally fine. This is what I was saying, like, you know, you want to tempo really aggressively. You have to have a really good spot for it. Imagine if I didn't have Syndra 3, Mordekaiser 3 when I did. I would definitely be bot 4. Anti-heal or no anti-heal, I don't care what, like, that part. What I'm trying to say is, like, if I didn't, like, I had Syndra 3, Mordekaiser 3 at the start of stage 4. And I'm barely gonna, I got top 4, but I'm barely winning any fights now. If you don't have an Eldritch +1, Eldritch +1 is the most important part. If you don't have an Eldritch +1 and you're playing towards this comp, you need to high roll it. You need to hit everything really aggressively. If you have an Eldritch +1, there's a chance you can still play. I've seen people make really strong boards around Syndra with Eldritch +1. As I said before, here I'm just going to be playing some extra units. I leveled to 9 this turn because I'm like, I just want to try and salvage placements. I'm not going to greed too much to roll really deep on level 9 here because I think I'm going to lose to everybody anyways. So I just want to upgrade, put in some extra units. I put in Chrono and a random shapeshifter, just whatever I have synergies for. I didn't hold on to a Galio. I'd probably skip Galios. Galio would be a great option here because now I have Nami too, and then I can swap all my Karma items onto the Nami. I'm just never killing this Rakan. This Rakan is like impossible to kill in other situations as well. So like in a comp like this, you just have no chance. The Eldritch Beast, the main way that you cheese out this comp is with the Eldritch Beast. If you have an Eldritch Beast, like the 7 Eldritch, or you have a Briar 2, a lot of times they can like stumble across killing the Callista. Right? If they kill the Callista, then you run into a really good spot. Because they can just kill the Callista, Rakan loses most of his healing because it comes from Callista damage. And then the Rakan will just die because Rakan doesn't do any damage. He's just a tank. Is this the right decision? No. I have to lose the Vex. I think I made a mistake here. That's my bad. You can see I'm confused. Yeah, you wanted Cantorin for Syndra to give her more AP. That one I just fucked up. Yeah, that's my bad. It's Karma in over Vex for sure here. Vanguard's not that important, but it's pretty good. Nami, I don't have Magein anyway for Nami, so who cares? But I just itemized the Nami because it's Nami 2. Yeah, and this is the part where anti-heal would have been great. I'm going to continue mentioning it because obviously I fucked up, so, you know, I'm down to admit my faults. My Eldritch Beast didn't go to the backline. Sometimes, I don't know how to make it. I think if they have Callista on the opposite side, like, I don't know the exact positioning for it, but the Eldritch Beast sometimes when he spawns in, he spawns behind the carry, and then sometimes he spawns on the side of the carry. And I don't know if I'm just imagining things or if I'm dumb, but it's just crazy. Also, red buff on Carousel gets taken instantly. Fuck me. But you know, it is what it is. I just take the Karma because maybe I hit Karma 2, put some damage items on her instead of the Nami. Double Nashers again. I have so many fucking Nashers Tooth this game. It's like I took the Nashers Tooth hero augment, you know? It is what it is. Do I take out Vanguard for Chrono? I think Vanguard's better than Chrono here. I think I'm still making a mistake. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just panicking. But it's probably just a third here. I don't think I beat the Vigor player. I don't think I beat the Callista player. The other Callista player had less HP than me, so they died, so it's not a fourth. But yeah. You know, we'll try our best. This guy's everybody 3-starred, by the way, except for Vex, which is so funny. But yeah, this was a Syndra game. Hopefully it was enjoyable. I try my best to be super informative. I really don't like talking about comps that I don't think are particularly strong, because I feel like it's like a bit like, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, I don't want to like make a YouTube video and say, hey, play this comp, then you guys are going to play it and lose LP, then I'll feel bad, because all of the videos that I make are mostly to try and help out people in their like ranked journeys and stuff like that. So, you know, I was already like thinking to myself, should I make this video? I felt like it was pretty high roll. I felt like it's good still knowledge to kind of see how to play, and hopefully I explain a lot of the other aspects of the comp really well. Hopefully you understand, okay, like this is what a good Syndra spot looks like. That's the amount of high rolling this guy did. Anti-heal, super duper important, especially in this comp like Syndra, because you just need it to chew through some of the front line because of your lack of damage. And then how early I hit Syndra 3 and Mordekaiser 3, and then how it's still lost out to some of the other comps. It's just something to take into account, something to note. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it was enjoyable, and have a great day for everybody. Bye-bye.